and we are here on a special edition here on Commanders in the Chat. Man, we got the schedule release here today. We can finally plan the rest of our calendar year and a little bit in 2027. Probably arguably one of my favorite off-season traditions. Obviously, the draft is number one, but the schedule release is kind of one of the things where just I love how they do it, and they kind of give us like just like I said earlier, uh, how you plan the rest of the year. Either you go to games or you watch games, watching the games at home or whatever. This is a great opportunity where you can just kind of plan out the year. Hey, like for me living in Virginia, okay, I'm one of the ones I always like look for like early season games because obviously, being in the elements and all the up in Maryland, who's trying to go to a game in December, who's trying to go to a game, late in the season, but it is what it is. But the schedule has been released. This is the official schedule here to my where I'm sitting is on my right, but if you look at it from the other perspective, it's here. But we are back here on Commanders in the Chat. So this is definitely a different schedule than what I predicted. I posted my projections of the schedule, and the Commanders group, from Rooter to the Tutor. As the kid said, they ate me up in the comments. But one thing I will give myself credit for, I did have us on the road against Tennessee, so I did have Commanders was gonna start the season on the road, and then they were going to end the season against Dallas at home, which served true. So I will give myself a little bit of credit for that. It is what it is. I'm gonna give myself credit as much as I can. You know what? I'm gonna give myself some applause, a golf clap. So it is what it is. So hey, I did have the Cowboys at home week 18. So I'm on the I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that. So let me kind of get my head back in the frame. But we back. So as you look at the schedule, go down it. Pretty much some takeaways, my personal takeaways off just reading, looking at the schedule, the first hour of its of when it was released. One thing for note, definitely to start off, the first two games on the road against NFC East opponents, which I love. It is a great barometer to see where this team at when they come back for the home opener on September 27th against Super Bowl champs. Will this team enter the home opener with a 2-0 record, 1-1, and 0-2? These are two pivotal games to start off the season. And it's funny, that's how I kind of wanted last year to start, especially considering the fact coming off the NFC Championship game against Philly. That would have been a perfect way to start the 2025 season, was against the Philadelphia Eagles at home. But hey, we got them here in 2026 to start off the season. There. So I do like these two games. It's just a great barometer of what this team is going to be. Tough games off the gate. You got Super Bowl champions at home. Then after that, you go to London and you play the Indianapolis Colts team, and then you come back and you play the New York Giants. So to think that essentially in your first 5 games is going to be against NFC East opponents. So I love the fact that we are actually starting off early with our NFC East opponents, and also sticking with the NFC East. You look at the November 12th matchup on a Thursday night at the Giants. So pretty much before Thanksgiving, all of our NFC East road games will be done, which I think will be a great thing for us. When you look at it in previous years where you've had coming off that week 14 bye, where you've had I'm not sure what year it was, might have been a couple years back, but when you had 4 out of your last 5 games was against NFC East opponents. So now it's kind of almost on the other end where pretty much you'll have all your road games against NFC East opponents done by November the 12th, and essentially your whole NFC East slate, except for the Cowboys game on Week 18, will be done. So one of the things where it'd be a great opportunity to kind of see how this team fares in their NFC East matchup. So I'm looking forward to that and seeing how that goes. Like we talked about the home opener against Seattle, another redemption game because they tore us to pieces in the matchup on Sunday Night Football game in November of last season. So kind of see what this team is going to be about coming into that. Also of note, I do like the 2 Monday Night Football games. The first one is going to be on the road against San Francisco 49ers on October 19th. I definitely think that'll be a great matchup for that as well. And, we just talked about the stretch. And it's one thing, too, I do like the fact that, I talked about the earlier stretch. And then also this is another stretch where you'll look at where you have a San Francisco team that's another team that's contending and also, good barometer for this team. So you're looking at off the gate, if you're looking at how the schedule is set up, this first 6 weeks is going to be challenging. So really want to see how this team goes through those first 6 games. One of my biggest gripes of the schedule is the Week 7 bye. It's funny because we haven't really had a good balance when it comes to bye weeks. I know the last 2 years, they're probably about 3 years now, because I know we had it's been a Week 14 bye. I know last year was Week 14. I think a couple years back it was I know at the Tennessee, so that was the second week of December. So I think that might have been Week 14 as well. But it's been a few consecutive years where we've had late byes, like early the second week of December. So now having a bye essentially at the end of October is really interesting. But because I always look at the sweet spot when it comes to a bye week, if it was up to me, you want to have it between at least that Week 9 to Week 11, where in a sense it's kind of almost in half. Where at least if you look at it, if we're looking at it from the schedule, where if you had a bye week, the second week of November, I think that's perfect. Or also, that week leading into Thanksgiving, the week before Thanksgiving. That's why I look at those where the perfect sweet spot where you kind of get the nice mix there. But it's still cool. Hey, well, even after that bye, we'll come back on November the 1st. On a Sunday Night Football game against the Eagles. So that's another one where we'll be at Northwest. So I definitely think that's going to be a great environment. That's another primetime game I definitely think is going to be tremendous. You got Sunday Night Football game on there. So usually we're good at home for Sunday Night Football game. So we shall see. I think the one that's really going to be interesting, obviously, following that, you got the Rams coming to town. They're another team that is, one of the contending teams in the NFC. So you look at that matchup, and then you somewhat got a short week against the Giants. Will be on the road, like I said, and that will actually be the final NFC East road game of the season. So I definitely think that'll be fantastic. And then we got a Monday Night Football game against Cincinnati with essentially 10 days of rest. We're usually not good on Monday Night Football at home, so we're really going to see how that goes against the Cincinnati Bengals. That should be fun. You head out west to Arizona the week of Thanksgiving. Well, the week of Thanksgiving, we got to put it that way. So you got that, and then you back on the road again to Tennessee. That December stretch is going to be really interesting. The Texans, that's going to be a great matchup as well at home. That Minnesota, with the Atlanta, Minnesota, those 2 games, I think they'll be really interesting. I definitely think how I think the season is going to play out. Those are going to be critical games for the Washington Commanders too, as far as from a playoff perspective. Especially if you're looking at Atlanta. I look at it; they were, obviously. A few miscues away from actually not miscues, but more a few. They were pretty much in contention for the NFC South and making the playoffs last year. Fell short, but now with Kevin Stefanski there in Atlanta, Tua Tagovailoa, and seeing, and pretty much the improvement of that defense. So you really want to they're going to be a team, I think, definitely be in the thick of the playoff, in the playoff picture. So, I look at that as kind of a interesting matchup, especially the Sunday before Christmas, and then the day after Christmas on a Saturday, somewhat of a short week. You go to Minnesota, and I think they're another team that I definitely think will be in the playoff picture. Yet again, another team like the Falcons, who somewhat had an opportunity, but you look at now with bringing in Kyler Murray, and now with KLC, what he does with quarterbacks in that system. So now you look at it, you have a little bit more stability at the quarterback position. Hence, I think will put them in that playoff picture. So I definitely think those two matchups will be very critical if this Washington Commanders team makes the playoffs, which I believe they will make the playoffs, and they definitely gonna have to capitalize either on both of those games for sure. I definitely probably more likely if it was more of a point of emphasis, it would probably be on the road against Minnesota on that on the Saturday, the day after Christmas. So that's going to be really key. And then obviously you got Jacksonville on the road. You got to go to Duval County in January, which, hey, that might be a nice little tropical getaway. So that might work out for us. And then got the Cowboys running out on week 18, which I definitely think that could be another, playoff caliber game for us. Potentially could be for the NFC East, more likely. But it's definitely going to be a great season for this Washington Commanders team. You look at the teams that they play, and this will be a great barometer when you look at these matchups. I mean, you got everybody on this schedule poses a huge threat. I mean, gosh, like you think you got the NFC West, which I think arguably is one of the best divisions. You looked at it where all, three teams made the playoffs in that division. Two of them played for the NFC Championship game, and they are all kind of back and retooling. So that's going to be a really interesting slate playing against those two, those four teams. And then obviously the NFC East slate is going to be amazing. And, you still have those contending teams in the NFC, like I talked about, the Minnesotas, obviously the Falcons, I think will be there as well. So great slate. It's going to be really competitive. And this team, and I definitely think this Washington Commanders team is built for these type of matchups. I definitely think they will be in contention. I think that they'll be playing meaningful football week in and week out. That week 18 game is going to mean something. It's going to mean something for sure. It's not going to be like how it was in the last, like last year where, hey, it was just a kind of packing in, a Josh Johnson victory in Philadelphia. This one's going to mean a lot more than that sentimental win. But shout out to our guy Josh Johnson, man. And he's in Cincinnati now, so I don't know. We may see him, we may not, but those are my takeaways from the NFL schedule. And as the days and weeks progress, we'll go more into the nuts and bolts of the schedule, preview things, and give some predictions, because it's May, and I know I don't want to give a prediction now, because come 3 months from now, when it's really time to kind of really put up or shut up and give my preseason prediction, it may be different than what it is today. So I'll hold off for that. We'll probably give you a prediction in the next 90 days or so. But without further ado, the next topic that I want to talk about, the final topic that I want to talk about tonight, is Jayden Daniels is set to appear in Netflix Quarterback Season 3, which will be out on July 14th. Definitely be a great, cannot wait for that to come out. July 14th, I will be ready and watching this series. I think I look at it just from the perspective, I think this will be a very interesting. I want to definitely, because I know last year was trying for Jayden Daniels, obviously with the injury against Green Bay, him trying to come back, and then I want to kind of see like kind of how everything kind of took place in that situation. Then him being able essentially to come back against the Chargers game and dominate. And at that time, the Commanders being 3-2, you know, at the time looking like, hey, they're kind of back to their old 2024 ways, and then, obviously, then the injury against Seattle on Sunday Night Football. And then, obviously, then it's, I wouldn't say re-injuring, but more so of him getting shut down in that Minnesota game when we got pummeled, in Minnesota. So I really want to see kind of the inside look of kind of how everything happened as far as behind the scenes, like how was his mental in these situations. So I definitely was definitely a trying year for him. So I definitely think it's a great opportunity for us as fans to kind of see how was his mental in those situations and kind of the adversity versus, in the previous year of 2024 when everything kind of went right, and now kind of going back to your sophomore season and pretty much everything went wrong for this season. So I really want to see kind of how he was from a day to day and kind of just see how everything went, like as far as behind the scenes of it. I know it was tough, but now we'll get somewhat of a bird's eye view of kind of what transpired, what happened with Jayden during those trials and tribulations of last season. Obviously, we'll see Miss Regina, his mom. We'll see her often. Curious as will we see? Will we see Juju Watkins potentially? So kind of one of the things where I have the curiosity factor. Will we see her as well too? But I'm definitely looking forward to it. July 14th, I will be ready. I will have that once it's released that Tuesday morning, and I see season 3 is on. So I definitely be looking forward to it. We'll probably discuss it here on Commanders in the Chat. So we'll probably dive into that. So just be aware. It might be some spoilers and they may not be, but we're gonna talk about it and right off the gate. So maybe break it down in some kind of form or fashion, but we'll definitely talk about that when it's released to us, and we'll kind of so do a deep dive or more, so just some more conversation about it. So this wraps up this episode of Commanders in the Chat. We'll be back next week. We'll discuss a little DC Defenders in that matchup against the Louisville Kings. We'll talk about that. We'll kind of recap that matchup, and we'll talk some more Commanders, kind of maybe talk a little bit more about the schedule and just any news regarding the Washington Commanders. We'll talk about that next week. Once again, thank you guys for checking us out. Follow us on social media, pretty much Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's Commanders, I as in igloo, T as in Tom, and C as in Chris. So Commanders, ITC, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So this wraps up this week's episode of Commanders in the Chat, and we'll catch you guys next week.